Okay, so some factorization. Always a question, as much as I can think, always a question on the Junior Cert paper, and typically B's paper 1. So the 2019 question was question 12, part A, factorize a squared minus 16n squared, okay? So there's 4 types of factorization on your course. There is taking out the highest common factor. There is grouping. There is the difference of 2 squares. And there is quadratics. Okay, and you have to know all 4, and you have to know them off the top of your head. Okay, you have to know what I mean by all of them. So that top one here is the difference of 2 squares. And sometimes it's a matter of trial and error trying to figure out which way is it, okay? So, for example, it's not grouping because grouping has 4 terms in it. And that only has 2 terms, 1, 2. It's also not a quadratic because it's got 2 terms, and a quadratic has 3 terms. So I'm down to the difference of 2 squares or taking out the highest common factor. So a couple of things here. This is the difference of 2 squares, so you're always looking for the minus in the middle. And then a perfect square number, okay? So a perfect square number is the following. It's the answer to 1 squared, 2 squared, 3 squared, 4 squared, 5 squared. So 1, 4, 9, 16, 25. They're my perfect square numbers, okay? And if I bring algebra into it, it would be x squared, it would be y squared, it would be a squared, okay? They are my perfect square numbers. In other words, for any of these numbers, I can get the square root of them and I get an integer. Okay, I don't get a decimal point, I get an integer. So that makes them perfect square numbers. And so if it's not any of these 3, then it's what we call taking out the highest common factor. Okay, so a perfect a difference of 2 squares. So you're asking yourself what squared gives you a squared, and that would be a. What squared gives you 16n squared, so that would be 4n all to be squared. Okay, and you can put the square root of 16 into the calculator if you can't see the perfect square numbers, okay? Okay, so the formula then tells me, oh, there's different versions of it, okay? If I have x squared minus y squared, okay, what I do is I write it as x squared minus y squared, and then it's equal to x minus y, x plus y. Okay, so what does that mean? Okay, because that's just letters. Okay, so for my one, if I bring it down here, okay, we've already written it as something to be squared minus something to be squared. Okay, so then you open up your 2 sets of brackets, and can you see it's the bit on the middle, on the inside, that you just fix this up so it looks better. It's the bit on the inside that you add and subtract from each other, okay? And that's why we write them like this first, so that it becomes a minus 4n, a plus 4n. Okay, it doesn't matter which of the brackets is plus or minus. I could have easily written down a plus 4n, a minus 4n. And that's your answer. Okay, remember what factorizing it is. It takes an expression or it takes a number and it writes it as its factors. Okay, so for example, if I had the number 24, I could write that as its factors, which is 6 by 4. Okay, 2 numbers that when we multiply them together, we get back to the original. This is 2 expressions that when we multiply them together, we will get back to the original. Okay, that's all any factorizing is. Okay. Part B then asked, One of the factors of 8x squared plus 45x minus 18 is x plus 6. Factorize 8x squared plus 45x minus 18. Okay. Yeah, okay. So I'm going to clean out this side just to give us loads of room, because I'm going to do this one in a couple of ways. Okay, so our quadratic is 8x squared plus 45x minus 18. I know it's quadratic because a quadratic can be written as ax squared plus bx plus c. If you go to your log tables, you'll see on page 20, you have a little section at the very top about quadratics, ax squared plus bx plus c. So anytime an equation looks like that, it is a quadratic. Okay, so to factorize a quadratic, it's bracket, 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 bracket. And what you do is you split the first term between here and here. Okay, you split the second term between here and here. Okay, this is a particularly hard one because we've got a number in front of the x squares and it's an even number, so it has lots of factors, and we have a number, quite a high number here with c. Okay, so that is why they've tried to help you by giving you one of the factors. Okay, so what they're telling you is that one of these brackets is x plus 6. Okay, and then it says, what is the other one? Okay, well, if you know your quadratics well, you'll know that that 8x squared has to be split between this bracket and this bracket. So if there's one x there, then there has to be 8x here, because that's how I get my 8x by my x to give me my 8x squared. Okay, in the same way, if I have plus 3 here, then I need to have, if I have plus 6 here, then I need to have minus 3 over here. Okay, because they are the factors of minus 18, knowing that one of them is 6. Okay, and if I just write that over here for the 8x squared, you know, if one of the factors was 8, then the other has to be 8x. Okay, so they are coming in here and here. And my plus 3 then, my plus 6 is going in here, and my minus 3 is going in here. Okay, so the answer to that one is 8x minus 3. Okay, so that, I suppose, was the easier way to do it given one of the factors. Okay, I'm not so sure how many people would have seen that. I definitely don't think it's everybody. Okay, so what happens if you don't see that one? Could I do it from scratch? Okay, well, yes, of course you could. So one easier way of doing guide numbers, so typically we use minus 18 as a guide number, but when there's a number in front of a, in many places, in many schools, they do a by c and they get the guide number of that. Okay, so the guide number is 8 times minus 18. It's just a pity because the numbers here are so high. So it's going to be hard enough to get the factors of it. Minus 144. Okay, that's what I'm using as my guide number. Okay, and remember that I have to add my numbers to give me plus 45. Okay, so that's where I'm going with this. So let me show you how it works. So factors of minus 144. The first thing I'm going to do is divide it by 2. So I have minus 72 by plus 2, or plus 72 by minus 2. I'm going to go back for 144 and divide it by 4, for example. So I have 36 plus 36 by minus 4 minus 36 by plus 4. I'm going to go 144 divided by 3. And why 3? Well, I can see that 72 is greater than my 46. 36 is a good bit below it. So I'm going in the middle now, so you can see what I'm doing here, okay? So I have plus 48 by minus 3 minus 48 by plus 3, okay? And these are closer to my 45, so I figure these are the right factors, okay? So which row gives you plus 45? So it's that one there, okay? So on a hard quadratic like this, you can rewrite it as 8x squared. Now instead of the plus 45, we take what I've written here in the red box. So it becomes plus 48x minus 3x. Okay, so it's still 45. I've just written it differently. And then, of course, I still need the minus 18. And then you do grouping. Okay, so you group and you group. So you look at these two terms and you go, what's common between 8x squared and 48x? So the 8 is, oh, I'll change that back to blue. 8 is and the x is. So I get an x there plus 6. Okay, so basically you can see that it's 8x by x gives me 8x squared. 8x by 6 gives me the 48x. Okay, I'm splitting this into its factors. One is 8x and one is x plus 6. Okay, and then I do the same with the next two terms. What's common between minus 3x and minus 18? Well, the minus is common and the 3 is common. Okay, in that 3 divides into 3 and 3 divides into 18. So it's also the x. It's a plus in this case because I need minus by plus to give me this minus. And it's a 6. And you know you're right when these two brackets are the same. So what you do is you put these two into one bracket, the outside ones, and you put the other two into the other bracket. Okay, so that's how you can do it from scratch. Now you see that one of the factors is indeed 8 plus 6, and the other factor is indeed 8x minus 3. So your answer to this one then is 8x minus 3. Okay, so if you didn't see it the shorter way, you could of course done it this particular way. Okay, it's just a little bit hard when the numbers are big to spot the factors. Okay, let's finish out part 2. Write down one quadratic in x other than 8x squared plus 45x minus 18, okay, that has x plus 6 as a. So these are the questions that people tend to not like very much because it's very, I suppose, it's very generic. It's a bit abstract maths, okay? So it's saying, okay, give me another quadratic that would have x plus 6 as a factor, okay? Well, you're really allowed to make up any other factor that you want, okay? So for example, I'm just making up x minus 2, okay? Because as long as x plus 6 is one of your factors, then it doesn't really matter what the other one is. Once I multiply them, I am going to get a quadratic. Okay, so then it comes down now to how do you multiply out these? Well, it's x by x, x by minus 2, plus 6 by x, plus 6 by minus 2. Okay, or you can visually write that down. X by everything in the second bracket, plus 6 by everything in the second bracket. So I haven't done anything different here. Right, that's just x by x and x by minus 2. And then I come back for the plus 6 by x and the minus 2, okay? So I've just done the same thing on that second line. I've just written it out as opposed to doing my my lines. So x by x, x squared, x by minus 2, minus 2x. Plus 6 by x, plus 6x, plus 6 by minus 2 is minus 12. And the two terms in the middle always tidy. So you get x squared plus 4x minus 12. Okay. When you multiply two factors like this together, you will always get a quadratic in the form ax squared plus bx plus c. Okay, every quadratic goes from factors, or sorry, from a quadratic to factors to a solve. So my answer, x squared plus 4x minus 12. And everybody was going to get a different answer here because it totally depends on what factor you make up here. That was part 2. And then the last part of this question was show that 2y plus 3 is a factor of 2y cubed minus 9y squared minus 28y minus 15. So this is long division. So let's try this one. So make sure you race on ahead of me and try it, okay? And see, can you finish it out before I can? Okay, and we're dividing 2y plus 3 into that. Okay, so just like any other algebra with numbers, okay, if you remember this, and then you would have done it in national school, you would have done 15 into 1 doesn't go, 15 into 12 doesn't go, 15 into 1, 2, 3 does go. So we'd ignore the 45 for now. And then 15 by what? 8. Gives me 120. Okay, so what you do then is you multiply 8 by the 15 to give you 120. You change its sign and then you subtract them to give you the remainder. Okay, and then you take the 45 down. Okay, and then you do it again. You divide the 15 into 3, 4, 5. Well, I only need the 4. So 15 into 34 goes twice. And then you multiply the 2 by the 15, which is 30. And you change the sign to get the remainder. Okay, and then we take down the 5 because we haven't used that yet. Then 15 into 45 goes 3 times. 3 by the 15 is 45. Change the sign and you get a remainder of 0. Okay, so that's how you long divided in national school or when you're in, I don't know if it's 5th or 6th class. And it's the same process that we use to long divide in algebra. Of course, it just takes a little bit longer now to get used to it because it's got letters. So what you're doing is you see the way there's 2 terms on the outside and we only had 1 term here. It's too hard to work with 2 terms when we're dividing it in. So you work with the term with the letter. So the 2y, okay? And you're saying 2y divides into 2y cubed how many times? Okay? Or another way of looking at it is what must I multiply by 2y to make it 2y cubed? Well, you need 2 more y's or a y squared, okay? There's 2 y's, there's a third y, and there's your y cubed, okay? And your 2 is there already, so I don't need a 2 up here because otherwise I'd get 2 by 2 to give me 4. Okay, and then we multiply that y squared, not just by the 2y, but by both bits. Okay, so y squared by 2y is 2y cubed. Y squared by the plus 3 is plus 3y squared. Okay, just like we did over on the right, change the sign, change the sign. And you're always looking for one of the letters to cancel. So it'll be the y cubes here. When I get down to the second part, I'll be cancelling the y squareds. When I get down to the third part, the y's, okay? And that's what you're always trying to achieve in these ones. So you can see there that 2y cubed minus 2y cubed cancels to 0, so that's good. Minus 9y squared, so minus 9 minus 3 is minus 12y squared. Okay, take these down. I haven't used them yet. Minus 28y minus 15. Okay, and then you do it again. Just like here, we divided the 15 into the 34 again. I'm going to divide the 2y into the minus 12y squared. Okay, and remember that I want to get minus 12y squared here so that I change the sign and I cancel. That's where I'm going. That's what I want to happen. Okay, so to do that, I will need a minus for sure to give me this minus. I'm going to need a 6 so that I get 6 2's to give me 12. And then let's look at the y's. I have one y there, but I need y squared. So y by y will give me that y squared. So now what we do is we multiply that minus 6y by the two parts again. Okay, so minus 6y by 2 does give me minus 12y squared. Minus by plus gives me a minus. 6 3's are 18y. Okay, so minus 6y by 3 gives me a minus 18y. Put a line under it, change the sign, and you can see I always put my new signs in a circle so that I don't get confused. And you have now minus 12 plus 12 cancels. Over here, I have minus 28 plus 18 is minus 10y. And of course, I need to take down my minus 15 because I haven't used that yet. Okay, and it's looking good because my y cubes are cancelled, y squares are gone, and now I'm down to just y's. Okay, and in algebra, the good thing is that you always get a remainder of 0. So you know if you don't get a remainder of 0 here, you've made a mistake somewhere along the way. And it's typically with signs. Okay, so let's do it again. What must I multiply by 2y to bring it up to minus 10y squared so that I have minus 10y here? Change the sign and they'll cancel. Okay, well, I definitely need a minus again. Okay, 10 and 2, so I need to multiply 5 by 2 to bring it up to 10. Okay, I need a y. I already have a y here, so I don't need to put a y up there. Okay, and now just like before, the minus 5 by the 2y and the minus 5 by the 3. So minus 5 by 2y is minus 10y. Minus by plus is a minus. 5 3's are 15. Change the sign, change the sign. Minus 10y plus 10y cancels. Minus 15 plus 15 cancels. Okay, so your answer, y squared minus 6y minus 5 is the answer when you divide it in. The question said, let me just rub out all these little lines now because they're kind of hard to see. Okay, show that 2y plus 3 is a factor. Okay, so I would say 2y plus 3 is a factor as the remainder is 0. In other words, if something is a factor, it divides in evenly. Okay, so that was the 2019 question, quite long and covered a few bits of algebra.